Hey, algebra students. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about solving multi-step compound inequalities. Now, let's just go over that title. Multi-step means that there's going to be more than one step to getting the x variable, or whatever variable it is, on a side by itself. Notice in all of our practice problems, the variable is x, but really it could be anything, and we just need to get that variable on a side by itself. But wait a second, there's another part to this lesson too. We're dealing with compound inequalities. That means that we're going to have an or, an and, or I'm going to call this one the implicit and. There's no and statement in here, except it's written in the and form because you remember a compound inequality that's an and inequality can be written as one singular statement where we have a minimum value, a maximum value, and then an expression in between. Okay, so we're going to learn what to do when we have these compound inequalities. And that's what we're going to be doing in this lesson. I'm just going to dive right into it. It's really quite simple. Whenever we have a compound inequality, you just need to work both of the inequalities. Or in the case of this and inequality, this is technically two inequalities. It's this one on the left and this one on the right. But really, when we work that one, I'm just going to refer to it as working all sides of the inequality. And the goal is to get x on a side by itself, or in the case of the and inequality, to get x by itself in the middle. Now let's watch and see how this is done. First of all, with letter A, the key to these is that we're actually working two different inequalities. So this is going to be 2x plus 9. We're going to do this one first, is less than 8. All right, how do I solve this one to get x by itself? I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides to begin. That's going to give me 2x plus 9 minus 9 is just 2x, right? Is less than negative 1. Now I need to divide both sides by 2. X is less than negative 1/2. And I'm just going to note that I don't actually have to flip the sign here because I divided by a positive number. I didn't divide by a negative. Even though the other side is a negative, I didn't divide by a negative. But wait, there's more to this because there's an or statement here. I need to work the other inequality too. 3x plus 3 is greater than 12. For this one, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. That's going to give me 3x is greater than 9. And now I need to divide both sides by 3. So when I divide by 3, I get x is greater than 3. Okay, I'm just going to go here and put an or in between these two because our final statement needs to have an or in it. X is less than negative 1/2 or x is greater than 3. Now the next thing I need to do is graph this inequality. This one's going to get graphed on the curve of the page, so sorry for the curved appearance of this. But notice that I have an open circle at negative 1/2 right here, and I'm going to shade to the left. And then, and that's this part. And then I also have an open circle at 3. I'm going to shade everything to the right. That's this first inequality. Okay, and just like all or inequalities in the past, these diverge from each other. The key difference to this problem is that we needed to solve both equations to be able to express our or inequality. Now, how does that work with an and, like in letter B? Well, we're going to notice it's pretty much the exact same thing. Okay, the only difference here is that I can do this all at one time. 24 is less than or equal to 2x plus 8 is less than 36. Now, when you have an and inequality, the way I work both inequalities at the same time is I just do the same thing on all sides of the inequality. So I'm going to subtract 8 from the middle to get x. I need to get x by itself in the middle. That means I have to subtract 8 here. I have to subtract 8 in the middle, and I have to subtract 8 here. I did it on all sides. So what is that going to give me? 16 is less than or equal to, let's see, 16 is less than or equal to 2x, which is less than 36 minus 8 is 28. All right, the next thing I need to do is divide by 2. Now, here's a key. If I divide everything by 2, none of the signs change. If I were to divide by -2, I would need to change all of the signs, flipping them in the opposite direction. So this is going to end up being 8 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 14. And I know I'm done when I have x by itself in the middle. All right, now what is this one going to look like? Well, first of all, let's just make sure we have the inequality correct. There it is. And this is what the graph of it looks like. It's going to be a closed circle at 8 because that one's included. And then I'm going to grade above 8 because this is the region where x is. X is between 8 and 14, but it's an open circle at 14 because x is less than 14. Next, we move on to letter C. In letter C, we have another and inequality. We notice that it's 6 is less than or equal to, we have an expression 2 times the quantity x plus 12 is less than 12. Okay, now, one of the things that it says here is supposed to justify each step. If one of these comes up in the homework, you need to write out the inequality just like this, and then write down your justification for each step as you solve. Like the first thing that I'm going to do is, let's see. Well, first of all, I need to take this middle section and do 2x plus 12 2x plus 24, I'm sorry, is less than 12. What do we call that when we take a number and multiply it across parentheses? Well, that was the distributive property, okay? Next, I'm going to subtract 24 from all sides. So it's going to be minus 24 there, minus 24 in the middle, and minus 24 on the right. So I'm going to end up with, so let's see, 6 minus 24 is negative 18, is less than or equal to 2x plus 24 minus 24 is just 2x, is less than negative 12. That was the subtraction property of equality, okay? And then lastly, I'm going to divide everything by 2. We're going to divide here by 2, we're going to divide our middle by 2, and we're going to divide the right side by 2. When I divide by 2, this becomes negative 9 is less than or equal to x. Notice the sign did not change directions. It's less than negative 6. And this is the division property of equality. Okay, that's what it means by show each step or justify each step. Now, I'm going to do the same thing in this one, but I'm not going to write out all of the steps on the page because this one's a little bit more straightforward. Now, if you're answering this one in an assignment, you will have to write out each step that you use as you solve. So, we're going to start with writing out the equation. Negative 16 is greater than 2 times x minus 2, or 27 is less than 3 times x plus 2. Now, the first step I'm going to do is distributing, and I notice that distribution needs to be done on both sides. So I'm going to call this the distributive property of equality, and it's just going to be 2x minus 4 for this one. I keep my or in the middle. I'm just going to bring my or along at every step here. 27 is less than 3x plus 6. All I did was the distributive property on both sides, okay? Now, would it be possible that you might have an inequality where you only have to do the distributive property on one side and not the other? Yes, depends on where the parentheses are. Sometimes you'll only have to do one thing because remember, we're independently in an or statement trying to get x by itself in both of the statements here, both of the expressions. So we just have to do on each side whatever it takes to get x by itself. My second thing I'm going to do over here is add 4 to both sides. That's going to give me negative 12 is greater than 2x. Or here I'm going to, so here I use the addition property of equality. Here I'm going to use the subtraction property of equality because I need to get this 3x by itself over here. So this is going to be, when I subtract 6 from both sides, 21 is less than 3x. All right, next I'm going to divide by 2. Okay, so when I divide both sides by 2 over here, it becomes negative 6 is greater than x. And then I'm going to keep my or. I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides here. And I'm going to have 7 is less than x. And that is my compound inequality. So letters C and D are completed. Let's go for letter E. Of every 4 babies born in a hospital one night, 3 have weights of 5.2 pounds, 6.3 pounds, and 7.5 pounds, respectively. What could the weight of the 4th baby be if the average of all of their weights fall within 6 and 8 pounds? Okay, now falls within between 6 and 8 pounds. That's a compound inequality. Can you determine whether it's and or or? If it's between two numbers, it has to be a conjunction, not a disjunction. So for letter E, we have a number that's a minimum. We're going to say falls within 6 to 8. 6 has to be less than or equal to the weight of the babies, okay? um, which is less than or equal to 8. And then we have some statement in the middle here. What's my statement in the middle going to be? Well, let's think about this for a second. I have 3 babies that we know the weights of. So 5.2 plus 6.3 plus 7.5, and a 4th baby that we don't know. Okay, but the average of all 4 of these baby weights is going to be between 6 and 8. It's the average that I'm looking for here. So what I'm going to do with all of these is divide them by 4. Because if I add 4 weights and divide by 4, I get the average, right? Okay, now how am I going to get these? How am I going to solve this one? Let's see. I'm going to move it to a better spot on the page so I actually have some room to work it. Let's give it a white background so we can see it. And then let's work this problem out. Okay, so to do this, I need to, first of all, multiply all sides by 4 to get rid of this divided by 4 in the middle. That means that 24 is less than or equal to 5.2 plus 6.3 plus 7.5 plus x, which is less than or equal to, and I needed to multiply all sides by 4, so this has to be 32. Next, I'm going to simplify the sum in the middle. So this is going to be 24 is less than or equal to, let's see, 5.2 plus 6.3 is 11.5. 11.5 plus 7.5 is 19. So this is going to be 19 plus x, which is less than or equal to 32. All I did was I added these 3 numbers here together. Now I can subtract that 19 from all sides of the equation. 24 minus 19 is 5, which is less than or equal to 19 plus x minus 19 is just x, which is less than or equal to 32 minus 19 is 13. So that means that the baby's weight had to be between 5 and 13 pounds for the average of all 4 of these babies to have their average weight fall between 6 and 8 pounds. So between 5 and 13 pounds is the answer for letter E. Now you know how to work these kinds of problems. You're ready to do the assignment for next time.